A mortising machine really is a simple device, and it does one thing extremely well: making square holes. And they've had mortising machines. Well, there's an argument that this could be one of the first woodworking machines ever. Before they had electric motors, people were just using leverage and their body weight to force a square chisel with something that bored out the center. And some of them were just a chisel that they pressured into the wood and just sliced it out. This is a pretty generic version of a bench top size. You have a huge lever that exerts a lot of pressure on the bit as you go through, and on the inside you have effectively a drill press wrapped around that leverage. Now, a lot of new woodworkers look at this and think, oh, it's a drill press. And you know, I guess technically they are, and you can buy attachments for your drill press that will allow you to use the bits that a mortiser does. But I have one of those. You can't even sell it or give it away. I've had it for so long. They just don't work that well. A drill press, it just wasn't meant for the kind of pressure that gets put onto these things. And they're built for that one task. They do it well. So let's take a quick tour, because this is a fairly generic example, and this is one of the first high quality woodworking power tools I ever bought. And I don't use it a lot, but when I do, it's a lifesaver. One of the key features of these machines is what I call chisel. I'm sure it has a specific term, but it's just a four-sided chisel that you can see it's carefully fitted so you can drop a auger. And when I say auger, you know, it has a cutting end on top, but it's not like a regular drill bit that where you can keep sharpening down. This spiral design is actually designed to clear away wood, get it out, because as this actually drills ahead of the bit a certain amount, softwood generally more than hardwoods, and then as it drills it out, the points on the end of the chisel come in and push the fibers into this bit so that they can come out and we can get a clean wall. So pretty much before every use, because these things exert a lot of pressure, they dull fairly quickly, but also because it is a joinery, it's a non-show surface on the inside of the wood. Nobody actually ever sees it. It doesn't have to be ultimately sharp. I like to polish the outsides on my new bits when I first get them, but pretty much the only sharpening you really need to do, you find on the machine. It seems common nowadays that mortising machines come with this little diamond cone sharpener, and all you do is you give it a good spin around here, try and keep it perpendicular, and that basically sharpens the inside, and you'll get a burr on the outside if you flatten it well. That's perfectly fine. That's going to come off as you use it, and this will be sharp enough for the application. Now these bits come in fairly standard size. You know, you got an 1/8, a 1/4, 3/8, a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch is as big as I own. I believe you can get bigger, but that's pretty much the most common size you see available. And they come with a special bit, auger bit, as I said. But when you're setting these things up, you had to get the distance of the auger bit in front of the blade just perfectly. Hardwoods typically have a little bit less clearance than softwoods. And how you do that one is, because these are two separate parts, they're actually clamped in the device separately. The bit itself goes in your Jacob's chuck, just like any other bit out there. But right below that, you have a clamping device that's going to hold the chisel. And on my particular one, it has these two little feeler gauges. You can separate them out, and what allows you to do that one is you can bump the bit up higher or a little bit lower doing these feeler gauges to get it to the perfect height, whether it is a softwood or a hardwood. And when I say perfect, it's a generalized perfect. So to load the bit, I'm going to put the auger in. It'll pretty much go all the way down. It's not going to come out, but it will slide out here. So I like to put a piece of wood down just in case I accidentally let it go. I don't want to damage it on the metal base of the mortiser. So lift it up. Oh, Got to get the Jacob's big enough. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to do it for softwood, which means I'm going to use both of these little plots. I lift up my bit itself as high as it will go. I tighten that in. Then I will push the bit all the way up and tighten my Jacob's chuck. Now the bit itself is perfectly aligned, but to get the clearance, what I do is I loosen up my chisel, remove these two shims, and push that the rest of the way up, and that lowers that bit the perfect amount. The next thing I need to do is set this perfectly square with the fence, so that way you'll make square cuts. I will admit I kind of do this the wrong way. They actually tell you not to register it against a fence. So what I will do is I'll put a small piece of board that I know is parallel. Then I will lower the bit down quite a ways so that it's below right here. So the force is coming from this, not the rotation of that. And then I will bring it, loosen the bit. So now it spins freely. Can y'all see that? Spins freely. I will then bring my fence forward just so it is touching the bit. And when I cannot rotate the bit anymore, I assume it is squared. I will then lift it up as far as it will go, lock it down, and that is now set. The chisel is square with the fence, and the bit is just the perfect distance for a softwood like the pine we're using. Next, I need to set the distance down into the mortise I'm going to be going. Now, there are two ways you can do it. You could put your piece of wood over there and then kind of measure how far down you go. Or, since I know that the board is 2.5 inches, the leg is 2.5 inches thick, I want to go 1.5 inches in. Well, if I just leave an inch gap here, I'm going to be fine. So if I simply lower the bit down to about half that little teeth distance, I can rest assured that I'm going to clear out enough material for 1.5 inches tenon to set up. Then I can reach back here and raise the stop block up to that point and lock that in. And now I cannot go lower than that. My handle will lock down there. So next it's just a matter of setting the fence distance and setting this to the correct height so that whenever I pull the chisel out, it's not going to lift my work up. This will stop it. So with my blank free and clear, but enough so it won't come up, all I got to do is line up the sides with my knife line, and it's simply a matter of lowering it down and drilling a square hole. Move it over, line up the other side. I like to do both sides first and then clear out the middle if there is any middle left. Move down to the next one. So there you go. Over the course of about 5 minutes, I took my time and I managed to cut 6 mortise and tenon joints in this router table leg that meet up in the center. It's something that could have been done, you know, with a hand chisel or router bit or the ever popular domino. And I do kind of think it's the domino that has kind of put the mortising machine on the back burner. A lot of people don't even think about those anymore. It might just be that the domino came out at the time that the internet DIY explosion happened on YouTube, so that people were getting it, showing it, so that this new generation of woodworkers don't even think about a benchtop mortising machine. But we've got to make square holes in woodworking, and it's a very traditional way of doing it. I mean, again, those things date back for centuries. And because it's gotten somewhat forgotten, because it's a very specialized, limited use tool, a lot of the older generation, me included, bought them for that use and haven't used them very much. So you can find them on the used market fairly inexpensively if you want to put one in your arsenal. I will tell you this, it is just incredibly convenient to have if you got to batch out a lot of mortise and tenon joinery, as in this router table that we're building. Oh, and for today's bonus, it's just a fun article I found on Wagner Meter's blog. It's by Tony Morgan. It's the history of woodworking and its influence on civilization. It's kind of a, just a little popcorn read, but I found it fun. I'll put a link to it down below.